Hello guys, how's it going? Screezilla here, I hope you're all well. Just a bit of a quick video today. I'm not going to be doing too much today. I just wanted to let you guys know that I had a little bit of an accident the other night. I had a fall and hit my head again. So I'm just having a bit of trouble. I've got an issue with my head. I've got a post-concussive syndrome, which basically is like having a concussion all the time, and having an extra hit to the head doesn't help things. So I might just be making a few less videos over the next few days, over the week or so. So I apologise for that. I just wanted to let you guys know. But I am working on the French aviation video that I talked about in my last video, my Chatty video. So a history of the Aeronautical Aviation. It's basically the French Air Force from World War One. And that will hopefully be coming soon with some gameplay from the Rise of Flight. So that will be coming up. The script's been written. I finished it off today, so I was pretty happy with that. So yeah, that will be coming soon for you guys. But I'm also going to be just trying to do a little bit more simulator flights as well. So I'm hopefully going to do some sim bomb runs and things like that for simulator mode. Nothing exciting, not like some awesome fighter pilot skills that you'll see other people doing, because, well, let's be honest here, I'm a crap pilot for fighting, so that's not going to happen. So we won't be getting much fun stuff there, but I'll try and do my best for you all. So I'm going to be doing some history videos, and I might do some bomber details as well in simulator mode, sort of how-to guides for bombing, things like that in the simulator battle environment. Just hopefully to help you out a little bit, things like that. Okay, so that's the airfield there, looks like. It's a burning debris. So we've got an airfield there, so I reckon our base will be coming up on us pretty soon. Open up my Bombay. So yeah, so I'm going to be doing some videos on some bombing tips and tricks and stuff like that. You know, nothing too exciting, but hopefully you'll enjoy them. A little bit off course there, so let's get some turning. Because it's very different bombing in simulator mode, really, because it's can really throw you off sometimes, because, well, you do miss your targets often, like I've done now. Where the heck is that base? Should be right over it. I can't. Ah, there it is. Okay, so let's go for a rerun on that one. Sometimes I wish we could zoom in the map a bit, just to make it a little bit easier for bombers on that situation. One of the things I've talked about recently, though, was artillery. And I also had a bit of a talk. If you haven't seen my Rise of Flight video, I was doing a bomb raid in that game. And I was having a little bit of a talk about the bomb sites in it. And the bombing. And basically, it's a bit more active than that of War Thunder. Whereas in War Thunder we've got, you know, you just aim and drop your bombs and that's it. You know, it's not the hardest bombing you'll ever do. you know, you will generally have a pretty easy time in War Thunder to bomb. Rise of Flight has a mechanic where... Where is my target again? Might be a little close. I don't think that might be, because I'm quite high. There it is. Bollocks. For some reason my bomb bay closed again. Great. Okay. So... fun. I say it's easy, and now I stuff it up twice on 2 approaches. Bollocks. Let's just go for the airfield. Decent height here. The flak shouldn't get me too much from up here. Should be safe to drop some bombs on their airfield. So yeah, if you've not seen that video or played Rise of Flight, basically it's a bit tricky to bomb, basically, because you have to work out altitude, speed, and wind direction, things like that, so your bombs get on target, and these all affect you a vast amount. Okay, bomb bay's definitely open now, so let's try and level out a little bit. Let's go a little bit left. So in it you have to actually adjust your bomb sights for the distance, the speed, and the target. And this makes for, well, a bit more of an interesting bomber run, really, because you've got to actually really it's really quite tricky to get your bombs on place, because you've got to do all those adjustments, especially for, you know, smaller targets like U-boats or vehicles, and it really makes it quite interesting, because, well, hopefully those bombs have hit. Not on target. You know, it does make for an interesting... There we go. Oh, good. All of those bombs for 51 points. That's great, isn't it? I shake my head sometimes at the way bombers get treated. So, anyway, what I'm saying is it really makes for a different experience, because you've got to basically work out how your bombs are going to work, and it becomes really tricky, which is great because it makes it harder to play a bomber. And I think that's one of the reasons fighters resent bombers, is because it's not really that hard. As a bomber, you just aim for the target, drop the bombs, and away you go, really. It's not like being a fighter pilot where you have to really take care, and, you know, you've got to get around and jink and, you know, get on the tail and stuff like that. You know, fighting in a plane is very tricky, whereas bombing, in War Thunder at least, is very easy. It's like Fisher-Price My First Bomber. And having something like manual adjustment of aiming, or different bomb sights, things like that, harder bomb sights to use, you know, making it so bombers have to actually, you know, work out their bomb location, things like that, could make a really big difference, and it could really, well, help lessen the resentment of bombers, of course, because, well, let's face it, people really dislike bomber planes in the game. And I'm not saying they're right to dislike bombers, you know, because at the end of the day, I play bombers a lot, and it saddens me that people are so hateful of bomber planes, because it's really not fair, because bombers have a part to play in the game. Unfortunately, Gaijin have taken away some of those parts for the planes. For instance, bases are now stronger and airfields are stronger, and yes, that's fair enough. I don't think bombers should be able to win a game instantly by destroying airfields and stuff. I think what should happen is if an airfield is destroyed, then the enemy team will have a much harder time. So, for instance, if our airfield's destroyed, they won't have AAA defense or things like that. So they lose their AAA defense on their airfield, and they get a 50% penalty for repair times, something like that, where if a bomber actually does do their job and take out the airfield, then it's going to make it easier for the team to win, but it's not necessarily an instant win. So something like that could be really good, but especially if the game puts bomber sites, makes them hard to use. Because imagine if a bomber pilot has to actually have skill, and yes, there is the thing of skill. Like, we do have skill. It's quite hard to hit a carrier from 15,000 feet, but as bomber pilots we can do that. I've had some really good hits on carriers, for instance, things like that, from incredible heights. And it takes a lot of skill to do that, but at the same time you don't get rewarded very much for doing some of these things. Like, for instance, the bombing of that airfield there, if say that caused damage and say took out 2 of the anti-aircraft guns, say, I know you can take out AA guns, but it's very difficult, in all honesty, when you're flying over an airfield to take out AA guns. And if you take out the AA guns, you lose points, lions and RP, because you're basically not hitting the airfield. So you're basically snookering yourself and destroying your own points, because you get less points for a AAA than you would for the airfield. But if, say, just damaging the airfield damaged the AAA accuracy, something like that, that would be a good little system too. There's also the thing of, damaging things. When you drop a bomb and hit a ship, you should get points for that. You should get more than just, 10 points for damaging a ship, with a bomb. It's very frustrating sometimes when you hit a ship with a 1,000-pound bomb straight on the deck, and it doesn't kill it in one go because the ship has hit points, so you need to use 2,000 pounds of bombs to kill it, for instance, and you don't get rewarded for things like that. So it's very frustrating sometimes. But as I was saying with the bomb sites, if the game had individual bomb sites for individual nations, so for instance the American bomb site's very accurate, the British bomb site very accurate, the German bomb site reasonably accurate, the Russian bomb site, well, they had a bomb site. Things like that, though, could be very interesting for the meta of the game, because it would make bombing more interesting, but it would also mean there's more skill involved. So, fighter planes wouldn't just be, lion farmer or bombers, they're just taking up places in our team. If bombers had more of an active role in the game, if say we took out taking out bases or a factory, say we take out a factory. Got some flak going around, so I reckon there's an enemy plane somewhere around here. I can't see it. I know I was tailing somebody in my... Oh, there it is. So, you know, taking out bases, say, reduces the airfield's capability, or reduces the well, AA's done its job there. Reduces the load times or the rearm times for planes, things like that. All those little things. Or when a plane rearms, they get 50% less ammo. Got my flaps set on my joystick and I keep tapping it as I'm moving around, and as you see there, I've managed to rip off one of my flaps. Great job, Scree. So yeah, you know, if bombers were harder to play and did more for the game, you know, even say in tank battles, you know, you could possibly, you know, tank battles not so much, but say in tank battles, if there were bases and you took out bases and the enemy team could no longer reload, you know, things like that, it would make a big difference to the game, because the enemy team would be a real disadvantage. Or, as I said, they can reload, but they only get 50% of their ammo if you take out all 3 bases. You damage the airfield, and rearming takes, you know, 50% longer, and also the AAA defense of the airfield is, say, 60-70% less accurate, something like that. So it would mean that those games where people are just hiding at an airfield would basically be null and void after that. You know, it would really affect the airfield campers. But it would also mean that bombers had a real use in the game and could really make a difference for everybody. You know, another thing is teamwork. You know, if a bomber is you know, stupid flaps. If a bomber is, you know, if you're within, say, 1 kilometre of a bomber, and you damage an enemy plane, you get a wingman bonus or a teamwork bonus and things like that, or a guardian angel or something like that, to make escorting bombers a more of a viable option for people, because at the moment nobody wants to escort bombers, because, well, bombers are just lumbering beasts of the air that take up places where fighter planes should be to the average fighter pilot. Giving them more versatility and more use in the game would be really, really handy. So what are your thoughts on bombers at the moment, and what were your thoughts on some of the suggestions there? I'd love to hear from you. Like, just let me know what you think of what I said here today, because I'd love to know what you guys think. The hell, my gear is damaged. Oh, that's not good. Apparently we've got a plane coming in, so let's abort this and let's go and get that plane before it attacks our airfield. So, you know, would you prefer it if bombers had a bigger role to play? You know, if they did have this sort of ability to really damage the enemy and cause hardship for enemy planes, things like that, if they you know, did damage the base. My gear is locked into a downward position. Let's just... Actually, I can check. Yep, my gear is locked down. I always forget that I can actually see with the panels, because I've got the little light up saying my gear is down. Okay, we're going to have to land this beast. So yeah, do you think that if bombers had that ability to basically cause damage to the enemy's systems, would that make bombers more viable and more protected? Would people want to keep the bombers alive? You know, bomber pilots have a lot to do with it as well, because you get a lot of bomber pilots that will just charge in like a bull and die immediately because they want to kill something quickly, and they don't really make a difference to the game. But you get bomber pilots like myself who will circle around the airfield and... what have we here? Will circle around the airfield and actually try and get help for you know, try and make it easier so people can not really going to hit with those shots, but
our base is under attack. We
might get
must
something. You know, it would help an awful lot, because people would actually like to sort of escort bombers then, give them something to actually escort for, or you know, give bombers a reason to basically be in the game, because at the moment they really don't have a reason. In ground forces, for example, bombers are very useless because, well, you can't see vehicles at set distances sometimes. When you're very high, you can't actually see where vehicles are on the ground because they don't show up, which is just ridiculous. You know, if you've got a bomb site with a good zoom on it, you would be able to see a tank, for instance. And people nowadays just basically suicide bomb their planes into people rather than actually try and fly them and try and actually do a decent bombing raid. This is going to be a rough landing for sure with our gear broken. But well, we're going to have to do it, so we're going to have to bite the bullet and do a terrible landing. So yeah, giving bombers actually a harder time for bombing, making it hard to use bombs, making it so, you know, bombers do have a tricky time with things, but also making it more rewarding for them, because at the moment bombers don't have much of a reward for, you know, for bombing. You don't get much reward or satisfaction from completing a good bombing drop or something like that. You know, it's very frustrating. So giving bombers more of a reason to exist in the game, but also giving them more of a well, better rewards if they do good, especially if they do change the difficulty, because as I said, you know, if it's more difficult, then it would be great if good players got more reward. You know, one of the big problems is you know, people don't get rewarded for playing well sometimes. And especially bombers, you just don't get any reward for a good bomb drop or getting a bomber home safely. You know, you just really it's just very frustrating sometimes. You know, you sort of would think getting a bomber down or going to perform a bomb run, getting it home, getting it down with broken gear. It'd be nice if you got something better than just a pat on the back and 214 points. It's really nothing compared to what you'd get if you damaged some planes and things like that. Okay guys, that's the end of the video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm sorry, a bit rambly. As I said, normal order will be restored soon, and I will see you then. Thank you so much for watching, and this is Screezilla out. Bye bye.